So I have a video on YouTube. It's called How to Stop Your Heart, and I explain this for like 30 minutes. I take you through belly breathing exercise. I have found in my practice a very clear distinction between a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic. When I'm engaged in sympathetic, it almost feels like a light switch. It's like a click. I can feel when it, and it's just from observing it for years and having this label to call it, and so I can just pay attention to the distinction. So that was like the initial, like getting into it, like, okay, there's this sympathetic, parasympathetic. That's where I cut it off, and I would sell the muscle isolations as this is going to bring you into parasympathetic. You're going to feel super, super calm. Anybody that's done the muscle isolations workshop, it's super relaxing. I almost have to like tell jokes so you don't fall asleep. And so then I started to study a lot of pranayama physiology, how the chemistry of your blood would affect the vascular system. It would affect the smooth muscle that lines your vascular system. And so I began to practice the Wim Hof breathing. And Wim Hof is a hyperventilating breath followed by breath holds. And so you kind of create a buffer. You charge your body with oxygen so that when you hold your breath, you can last longer. And it's a really cool thing that happens when you hold your breath. My longest breath hold now is 5 minutes, 44 seconds. And it's a really cool thing that happens to the mind and your attention and the features inside your physiology that you begin to notice when you hold your breath that long. All of the vascular system, all the miles and miles of vascular has smooth muscle that's lining it. And that smooth muscle is supposed to contract when like you're cold. If you're cold, you want your vascular system around your extremities to contract and push all the blood to your core and preserve core temperature. But because you've lived in air conditioning and you've lived in heating all of your life, and you only go outside when it's comfortable, that smooth muscle, the nervous system coordination to that smooth muscle has atrophied. And it's not as controlled. And this is where you get into a cold shower and whereas it only takes a few weeks of training your nervous system, that you step into the cold shower and no longer that happens. And it's simply a coordination, and the muscle it only contracts if a nerve is telling it to. And so when I'm thinking of like a nervous system, yoga for nervous system, I'm thinking, well, I want to have regulation over how I'm pushing my fluids through my body. I want to have regulation over the stability of the joint. Do I want the front of my shoulder blade to turn on when I'm weight bearing on my hands? And then there's the obvious nerve tensioning, just stretching nerves. You know, something simple like if you turn your leg out, kind of bend the knee a little bit, fold forward, you'll feel your sciatic nerve. Right? When you go into deep back bending, like the wheel, you'll feel your phrenic nerve, and so then you become really familiar with diaphragm breathing in your back bend. Little things like if I push my arm down, turn my head slightly, and push the ear to the opposite shoulder. In certain locations you can find cranial nerves, especially if you let go of your tongue. Create a lot of space between the palate and the tongue. And think about lifting both sides of the head, so it's not a squashing on one side. And actively pull the arm down, shoulder blade down. You might even feel the brachial plexus too, down that far arm. Do the other side. And so Sarah, if you have a tense neck, you can also push the head into the hand. That'll help relax the far side of the neck. And a lot of nerve tensioning is, for me, it's the distinction between when is it muscle tensioning, and which is called stretching, and when is it nerve tensioning. And the distinction, it's unclear in the beginning, and it just takes practice. And it takes having a reference. So the easiest reference is the radial nerve tensioning. It's like, that's definitely a nerve for sure. Like you feel it. And then, so I'm looking for that kind of sensation that's different than a nerve, than a muscle stretching. Do the second side again, if you haven't. Also, turning my humerus out helps to balance the stretch on the scalenes. If the shoulder turns in, it ends up just being posterior scalene. Yeah, just like that. I turn out like that all the time. I'll be driving and I'm doing this. And I'll put a block between my elbows and I'll drive like this.